It has been prophesied that the dreaming would return, and this is a cross-cultural understanding. Many tribes around the world knew about this returning. They were dreaming cultures, and that means that most of their life was based around their dream time, either nighttime dreaming or daytime visions, and they worked very closely with the spirits of the world and their environment. They knew and they believed in that understanding about animism, how there is a spirit in everything, all plant life and the animals and the trees and the sky and the clouds, the grass, the deserts, and the ocean. And there's a counterpart in the spirit world. And it starts there first, and then it creates its physicality here on Earth, which is the secondary in the physical realm. And as we moved into the mind and we forgot about the dreaming, we moved away from the relationship with all of life, not just on the surface of the Earth, but all worlds that exist here. And this is a cross-cultural understanding, again, that they knew there were many worlds here. They know there's many realms, many worlds within this one world. And many of those realms we consider fantasy, or something that they're of childhood stories, like the fairies or the gnomes. We call the lizard people. If you look at cultures such as in Australia, they're called the people, with capital T, capital P, the people. And they knew that the dream time is the real world. And this is the secondary of that. And they knew about the dreaming. And they knew about the connections between the spirits, the animal spirits, and the plant spirits. And they had that interconnected relationship. And they worked together throughout their daily activities. And this was just a norm. And it wasn't until modern civilizations fell away from this understanding and they moved more into the mind. And that relationship between the world that we see on the outside and our relationship with ourselves, with the human world, was disconnected. And it was as if, and all the other beliefs that came into play said, no, we are not really of this place, and we're different from everything else. And so this place is ours to do what we want with. And again, we had forgot about the dreaming, which is very important for our balance of how we exist with everything else, all life here on Earth, and how we were able to interact in a balanced way without thinking that we're the most important ones here and everything else is not, and they need to get out of our way. So this dreaming is returning now with what you would call the change in consciousness, the shift in frequencies. I like to call the great shift that is among us. And we're in it. And it's been going on for several years now. And with that, there's been a change in frequencies on the planet. All life moves at a frequency of 7.83 hertz. And that's how all life can do its business, how it's able to function, how it's able to, what we call, live life and create. And there was a change in this. There was fluctuations that were happening. And it was starting to kind of fall off of balance a little bit. And actually to an extreme, in a sort of speak, in a way. 2014 was a big year, but it's been getting more intense after that. And it ranged from 7.83 to about 50 hertz, and that's cycles per second. And that can make life fall very much out of balance. how migration patterns happen, how birds fly, their flight patterns, to how sea life moves, to how animals migrate on the land. They get really confused when there's a change in the frequencies. And that also affects humans. Because the brain waves on a normal, everyday, average thinking, on the daytime thinking level, is about 7.83, a little bit above that. The 7.83, anything below, you move into a more relaxed state where you'd say, oh, it's meditation. And then more below that is the theta waves, where trance states come into play, and how shamans can do their work, the one who sees between realms, between worlds. And then below that is the delta waves, and that's deep sleep. Anything above the 7.83, you have a very awake, alert mental activity going place. And it can go into a highly focused state as well. It can go into a confused state as well. But it also can go into a highly elevated knowings of your spirituality, when it goes really high into its cycles per second. So with those fluctuations, humans have had a difficulty in adjusting. And so there's many changes going on within the human realm. We would hear all of the news, and all across the board in every level of organization on the planet. And it's getting difficult for people to know what's happening. And scientifically, they're not really talking too much about this. You're not hearing about it in main news. There's a spiritual movement happening, and it's growing in numbers because of this change in frequency. We're able to do this. We're able to come out and speak these truths, and they're being received. So many people are wondering what's going on, why there's so much turmoil, but at the same time, why there's so much elation with spiritual discovery. And so as we move more into these years coming, people are going to start getting very curious about what is happening. And there has been some major shifts with the sun. The sun is in a very high cycle of activity where it's getting hot, and it will eventually cool down. But at the same time, and that's causing the core of the earth to heat up, which is creating more lava flow, and it's creating melting of the ice and so on and so forth. But you also have human activity that have done their part in causing issues with the ecosystems. So all this change in frequency has been caused, and if you look deep into it, it happens when thunderstorms take place between the ionosphere and the ground. And that's when it mostly fluctuates. There's some major activity going on. But you have all three of these things happening at once, and it's creating a massive change, that one like we've never ever experienced before on Earth. And again, this falls into line with the prophecies, and this is cross-cultural, all over the planet. People have known, the ones that haven't gone away from the heart knowing, the heart center of the earth, that there would come a time when the dreaming would return, and the knowing of their people would come back to them. And we are finally living in these times. When I go and change my mind, and how my mind usually is at that 7.83 hertz or a bit above, or that regular thinking mode and in daily activity, and I go into what I call a trance state, which where shamans go in order to do their work and to bring information to the community or for themselves or for the healing of an individual. They lower their brain waves, and they either do it through a couple means. Some cultures, they take plant medicines, which can alter that relationship between them and the human, that they can bring the brain waves down to a certain frequency. And then you can, at the same time, that and or use percussion instruments such as a shaker or a drum, and that brings you to a certain state as well. And so when I do that, I utilize the drum. I don't take any plant medicines or anything of the kind, but I use the specific a drum when I beat it at a specific pace. And when I do that, I also can make sounds such as whistling and other singing sounds from my vocals, or I can at the same time move around, dance a little bit. So I'm utilizing my brain, my heart, and my physical body all in one to bring me into a space for my mental mind to merge and relax into my knowing. And once I feel it's time, and the energies are working throughout my body, I stop and I move into position, and I relax with the breath. And then I continue on with what is called a journey. And that means that my brain is able to see how the earth sees, how everything, all life that all the plants and the animals, is relaxed and moving out of that talking with the brain, constant mind chatter. Stops, slows down, is a better way to say it, slows down, and I'm able to listen, and I can receive information that way, because my brain isn't going on overdrive. It's just not in that normal thinking beta wave on everyday, normal day-to-day activity. And so I'm able to receive information for the intention that I'm using the journey for. And so this is how it works. And usually when people go to sleep, when the average person doesn't do this work, everybody goes to sleep at night and they go into the dream state. And the dream state pretty much takes you to the same place, because what's happening is that your brain waves go from that normal thinking, that beta wave, about 8 hertz, down to about 3. And it brings you to the theta waves, the same brain waves as beating a drum at a specific pace, or a shaker, or taking plant medicines. And sometimes those cultures will do both. Sometimes you'll see a shaman or a medicine person, if they do the shamanic work, they'll drink a tea or smoke a certain plant, and they will shake a shaker or beat the drum, and it will bring them into that state. But when someone's sleeping at night, they get to that same brainwave. And this is where dream activity comes. And then you wake up and you remember your dream. Some people don't. Regardless, you're always dreaming, even if you remember it or not. Because that's the place where you go to all that is, to the place beyond the earth realm and the knowing. Of this place where you're no longer distracted with just the brain waves, the normal thinking waves of everyday activity. And you go home, as many cultures believe, and this is, again, the cross-cultural, that the dream time is the real world, and this place is secondary. This is the counterpart of the spirit world, and that comes first. That's your home. And this is, let's say, a home away from home. And you're only here for just a little while, and then you go back into the dreaming. But what's happening now on the planet is that those two worlds, as you'd say, which weren't separate to begin with, are merging. And this is what's creating interruptions to human activity, and also interruptions to all life as we know it. And human consciousness is very much related into the changes of the environment that's going on. And also, it's tied into the chaos that's you're hearing in the news. Everything's being lifted up to simply be cleansed out, because it can't stay on a planet that where the dream time has returned, or another way to put it, it can't stay in a planet that has a frequency of a higher vibration. And so this is what it means for the dreaming to finally return. And it's been our birthright. And this is something that all of us are going to be going through if we choose to stay here in this life on Earth at this time and moving forward into the coming years and decades. So the future and the cultures there are dreaming cultures, where, for instance, we're waking up again every morning. And for breakfast, we're sharing around the table our dreams. And it's something that's very important, because the dreams can save your life. You can also have a dream for another individual. They're also precognitive, where you can kind of know what's happening next. So it's a part that had been lost in us. And it's been kind of frightening for people. They feel like they've been walking alone, because this isn't something that's been taught. It, again, was lost. Only the certain cultures that never left the heartland, never left the heartbeat of the earth, that frequency of the knowing of the dream time. They knew. And they knew it would return when the people would finally be able to be consciously active and participants in this transformation. So thank you for joining this talk. And those listening right now, it is about you. And it's very important that you're here, because you're the ones that are making this shift easier for others to come into their knowing. So I honor you for that. And thank you once again. Many blessings.